The thing about marriage is that it's like a slow-motion car crash. You see it coming for miles, but somehow you're still surprised when the metal starts bending and the glass starts flying. I'm Nick Vance, 41 years old, and I've been watching my marriage disintegrate for the better part of 2 years. What I didn't expect was how much I'd enjoy the finale. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It started on a Tuesday evening in October. I was sitting at our kitchen table, pretending to read financial reports, while actually listening to my wife Serena whisper into her phone in the next room. She'd been doing this dance for months. Late nights at the office, mysterious calls, sudden interest in yoga classes that seemed to require a lot of makeup and perfume. "Just tell him you need space," I heard her say, voice barely audible. "Make him think he's losing you. Trust me, Mindy, it works every time." Mindy. Her best friend since college, the kind of woman who collected drama like vintage handbags and dispensed relationship advice with the confidence of someone who'd been divorced twice by 35. I'd never liked her, and the feeling was mutual. "He'll panic," Serena continued, her voice getting more animated. "They always do. Then he'll start appreciating what he has." I set down my reports and smiled. After 15 years of marriage, Serena thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. What she didn't know was that I'd been planning my own moves for months. 3 days later, Serena made her announcement. She'd prepared for it like a Broadway performance. Candlelit dinner, my favorite wine, even the good china that we usually saved for holidays. She wore the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one that made her green eyes look like emeralds. "Nick," she said, setting down her fork with theatrical precision, "we need to talk." I looked up from my salmon, keeping my expression neutral. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I've been thinking a lot lately." She paused, probably waiting for me to look worried. I didn't. "About us. About where we're going." "Okay. I think..." Another pause. This time she looked toward the kitchen, where I could see Mindy's shadow through the window. She'd positioned herself perfectly to watch the show. "I think we need to take a break." The words hung in the air like smoke. Serena's eyes were fixed on my face, waiting for the panic, the pleading, the desperate scramble to save our marriage. Instead, I smiled. "Perfect timing," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket. I was about to suggest the same thing. I pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 3 days, waiting for exactly this moment. The letterhead was clear. Morrison and Associates, the consulting firm that had been courting me for 6 months. I slid it across the table to her. "My transfer approval came through," I said, cutting another bite of salmon. "Denver office, 60% raise, full relocation package. I start in 3 weeks." Serena's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, shock, then something that looked almost like fear. Through the window, I could see Mindy pressing closer to the glass. "Transfer?" Serena's voice cracked slightly. "You never mentioned a transfer." "You never mentioned needing space." I shrugged. Funny how these things work out. She opened the letter with shaking hands, her eyes scanning the official language that confirmed everything I'd just told her. The salary figure made her blink twice. This is a lot of money, Nick." "Yeah, enough to start over completely." I took a sip of wine, savoring both the vintage and the moment. Clean slate, new city, new life. Like you said, perfect timing. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Serena's carefully orchestrated evening was falling apart, and we both knew it. Her power play had just become my exit strategy. "But what about us?" she asked, and for the first time in months, she sounded genuinely vulnerable. "What about us?" I stood up, folding my napkin neatly beside my plate. "You said you needed space. Denver's got plenty of space. Mountains, fresh air, the whole package." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Serena was still sitting there, holding the letter like it might bite her. "Oh, and Serena? Next time you want to stage an intervention, maybe don't do it with the kitchen window open. Mindy's not as sneaky as she thinks." The look on her face was worth 15 years of marriage. Chapter 2. The Unraveling. The next morning, I woke up in the guest bedroom feeling better than I had in years. I could hear Serena on the phone downstairs, her voice pitched high with stress, probably calling Mindy, trying to figure out how her foolproof plan had backfired so spectacularly. I made coffee and checked my email. 3 messages from my new boss in Denver, all enthusiastic about my upcoming arrival. 2 from my lawyer, confirming that the separation papers were ready whenever I wanted them, and 1 from my neighbor Greg, a former cop who'd become my unlikely ally in recent months. Coffee later, his message read. Got some interesting news about your situation. Greg lived 2 houses down, a divorced guy in his mid-40s who spent his retirement doing private security consulting and watching the neighborhood drama unfold. He had the kind of cynical sense of humor that comes from 20 years of dealing with people at their worst, and he'd taken a particular interest in my marital troubles. I met him at Murphy's Diner, a greasy spoon downtown that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Greg was already there, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. Old cop habits die hard. "You look pleased with yourself," he said as I slid into the opposite seat. "Should I not be?" "Depends on how much you know about your wife's extracurricular activities." He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Serena and a man I didn't recognize sitting very close together in what looked like an upscale bar. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 nights ago. "Who's the guy?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "Trent Fisher, vice president at Serena's firm. Divorced last year, drives a souped-up Charger, spends more on hair products than most people spend on groceries." Greg scrolled to another photo. They've been meeting regularly for about 3 months. The second photo was more damning. Trent's hand was on Serena's thigh, and she was leaning into him like they were old lovers, which apparently they were. "How did you get these?" I asked. "I have my sources." Greg's smile was predatory. Turns out Trent likes to brag about his conquests at the gym, made quite an impression on some of the other guys, talking about how he was helping a married woman remember what passion feels like. I stared at the photos, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. I'd moved past that months ago. It was something sharper, more focused. It was the desire for justice. "There's more," Greg continued. "Your friend Mindy, she's not just giving relationship advice. She's been actively setting up the meetings, providing alibis, even booking hotel rooms. Her husband found some interesting credit card statements. Dave knows. Dave knows everything. He's been documenting it all, building a case for his own divorce. Turns out Mindy's been cheating too, with her personal trainer. Real soap opera stuff." I laughed, surprising myself with how good it felt. "So let me get this straight. Serena's been having an affair with her boss, Mindy's been facilitating it while having her own affair, and they thought the best strategy was to make me think I was losing my wife?" "That's about the size of it." Greg leaned back in his seat. "Question is, what are you going to do about it?" I thought about it while I finished my coffee. The old Nick would have been devastated, would have confronted Serena with tears and accusations, would have begged her to work things out. But the old Nick was gone, replaced by someone harder and considerably more creative. "I'm going to Denver," I said finally. "But first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with." That afternoon, I made a few phone calls. The first was to a private investigator Greg recommended, a woman named Sarah Chen who specialized in matrimonial cases. The second was to my lawyer, updating him on the new developments. The third was to my boss in Denver, confirming my start date and asking about temporary housing. The fourth call was to Trent Fisher. "Trent Fisher's office," a perky voice answered. "This is Nick Vance. I'd like to speak with Mr. Fisher about a personal matter." There was a pause, then Trent's voice came on the line. He sounded confident, almost amused. "Nick, Serena's told me so much about you. How can I help you?" "I wanted to thank you," I said, keeping my tone friendly, "for taking such good care of my wife while I've been busy with work. It means a lot to know she has such attentive colleagues." Another pause, longer this time. "I'm not sure I know what you mean." "Of course you don't." I chuckled. "Listen, I'm having a little going-away party this weekend. Nothing fancy, just neighbors and friends. You should come. Bring your Charger. I've heard so much about it." "I don't think that's appropriate." "Oh, but I insist. Serena would be so disappointed if you didn't show up. After all, you're such an important part of her life these days." I hung up before he could respond, already planning my next move. By the time I was done, everyone in our social circle would know exactly what kind of people Serena and her friends really were. The party was set for Saturday night. I had 3 days to prepare, and I intended to make them count. Chapter 3. Setting the stage. Friday morning brought the first crack in Serena's facade. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when she came downstairs, still in her bathrobe, her hair disheveled and her eyes red-rimmed. She'd been on the phone until well past midnight, and from the sound of it, the conversations hadn't gone well. "We need to talk," she said, pouring herself coffee with shaking hands. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "This Denver thing. Maybe we're being hasty. Maybe we should try counseling first, work through our problems like adults." I flipped my eggs, taking my time with the response. "What problems, Serena? You said you needed space. I'm giving you all the space you could want." "But I didn't mean..." I thought we could work things out. I thought you'd fight for us." "Fight for what, exactly?" I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral. For a marriage where my wife stages interventions with her best friend? For a relationship where I'm apparently so inadequate that you need to seek fulfillment elsewhere? Her face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." I plated my eggs and sat down at the table. "Tell me, how long have you and Trent been working on that big account together? The one that requires so many late-night strategy sessions?" Serena's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. Coffee splashed across the white tiles like blood at a crime scene. "Nick, Save it." I stood up, stepping carefully around the broken ceramic. "I've got a party to plan." The rest of Friday was spent in preparation. I called all our mutual friends, extending invitations with just the right amount of casual enthusiasm. I ordered food from Serena's favorite restaurant, bought her preferred wine, even hired a small catering crew to handle the details. To anyone watching, it looked like a loving husband throwing a farewell party for his wife. Greg stopped by in the afternoon to help with the setup. We strung lights in the backyard, arranged tables and chairs, tested the sound system I'd rented. To any observer, we were just two middle-aged guys getting ready for a suburban party. "You sure you want to do this?" Greg asked as we positioned speakers around the patio. "Absolutely. Sometimes the best revenge is just telling the truth at the right moment, to the right people." "And you're sure about the evidence?" I patted the tablet in my jacket pocket. Sarah Chen had worked fast, compiling a comprehensive file of photos, credit card records, hotel receipts, and text messages. Everything was legally obtained, thoroughly documented, and absolutely damning. "I'm sure." Saturday evening arrived with perfect October weather. Crisp air, clear skies, and just enough of a breeze to make the string lights dance. Guests started arriving at 7, and by 8 o'clock our backyard was full of neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Everyone seemed to be having a good time, drinking wine and making small talk about my upcoming move to Denver. Serena played her part perfectly, acting like the supportive wife who was sad to see her husband's career take him away from their shared life. She wore a blue dress that brought out her eyes and smiled at all the right moments. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed the performance myself. Mindy arrived fashionably late, accompanied by her husband Dave. She made a beeline for Serena, the two of them whispering together near the bar. Dave caught my eye and nodded slightly, our signal that he was ready for what was coming. Trent showed up just after 9, driving his Charger with the windows down and the stereo pumping. He'd dressed for the occasion in an expensive suit and cologne that announced his presence from 20 feet away. Several of the women at the party noticed his arrival, which was exactly what his ego needed. "Nick," he called out, approaching with a confident smile and an outstretched hand. "Thanks for inviting me. Hell of a party." "Glad you could make it." I shook his hand, gripping just a little too tightly. "Let me introduce you around." I led him through the crowd, making introductions, letting everyone get a good look at Serena's colleague. He was charming, I had to give him that. The kind of man who made other women wonder what they were missing and other men feel inadequate. Under different circumstances, I might have even liked him. But these weren't different circumstances. At 10 o'clock, I called for everyone's attention, tapping a knife against my wine glass until the conversations died down. The crowd gathered around the patio, faces turned toward me expectantly. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began, my voice carrying clearly in the cool air. "It means a lot to have so many friends here to send me off to Denver." Polite applause, a few hear, hear calls from the crowd. When I first got the job offer, I wasn't sure if I should take it. It's a big change, leaving behind everything familiar, starting over in a new place. But sometimes life forces your hand, doesn't it? Sometimes you discover that the life you thought you had isn't really the life you're living. I could see Serena's face from across the patio. She was smiling, but her eyes were worried. For instance, I thought I had a marriage based on trust and communication, but recently I've learned that my wife has been getting advice from some very interesting sources. I gestured toward Mindy, who was suddenly looking like she wanted to disappear. Mindy here has been coaching Serena on how to manipulate me into being a better husband. Isn't that thoughtful? The crowd shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the kind of speech they'd expected. And my wife's colleague Trent has been so helpful, providing emotional support during this difficult time in our marriage, really going above and beyond what you'd expect from a coworker. Trent's confident smile was starting to crack around the edges. In fact, they've been so supportive that they've been meeting regularly for months, sharing intimate dinners, booking hotel rooms together, really putting in the extra effort to help Serena work through her marital problems. The silence was deafening. I could see faces turning towards Serena and Trent, putting pieces together, understanding dawning in their expressions. So when Serena told me she needed space, I realized she was absolutely right. She needs space to explore her relationship with Trent without the inconvenience of a husband getting in the way. And I need space to build a new life with people who actually respect me. I pulled out the tablet and held it up so everyone could see the screen. For anyone who thinks I'm being unfair, I have photos, credit card records, hotel receipts, and text messages documenting the entire affair. Sarah Chen is an excellent private investigator. I'd be happy to give you her number if anyone else needs her services. The crowd erupted. Some people were staring at Serena and Trent in shock. Others were pulling out their phones to record the drama, and a few were already heading for the exits. Mindy was frantically whispering to Dave, who just shook his head and walked away from her. Serena pushed through the crowd toward me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "How dare you?" she hissed. "How dare you humiliate me like this?" "Humiliate you?" I laughed, and the sound carried across the suddenly quiet patio. "Serena, you humiliated yourself. I just provided the documentation." Trent appeared beside her, his earlier confidence replaced by barely controlled rage. "You son of a bitch," he snarled. "You set us up." "No, Trent, you set yourselves up. I just chose the venue for the reveal." I smiled at both of them, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have packing to finish. My flight to Denver leaves tomorrow morning." I walked into the house, leaving them standing in front of 50 shocked neighbors and friends. Behind me, I could hear the party dissolving into chaos. Angry voices, car doors slamming, the sound of my old life finally completely falling apart. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Chapter 4. Aftermath and Acceleration. Sunday morning was blissfully quiet. I woke up in a hotel room downtown, having left the house the night before while Serena was still dealing with the fallout from the party. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts, but I'd turned it off around midnight and slept better than I had in months. When I finally checked my messages, the entertainment value was considerable. 17 missed calls from Serena, 12 from Mindy, and 3 from Trent. The text messages ranged from desperate, "Please call me, we need to talk," to angry, "You're a vindictive bastard," to threatening, "This isn't over." There was also a message from Greg. "Coffee? You need to see the neighborhood Facebook group." I met him at Murphy's Diner again, and he showed me his phone. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group, normally devoted to complaints about garbage pickup and lost cats, had exploded overnight. Someone had posted photos from the party, and the comments section was brutal. "Did you see Serena's face when he pulled out those receipts?" I always wondered about her late nights at the office. Poor Nick. He seemed so calm about the whole thing. "That Trent guy is a piece of work. Did you see him trying to sneak out the back gate?" Mindy's been stirring up drama for years. About time someone called her out. Greg scrolled through dozens of similar comments, each one driving another nail into Serena's social coffin. "She's done in this neighborhood," he said with satisfaction. "No one's going to trust her again." "Good. Maybe next time she'll think twice before trying to manipulate someone." But even as I said it, I knew this wasn't over. People like Serena and Trent didn't just accept defeat, they regrouped and counterattacked. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. I spent Sunday afternoon apartment hunting online, looking for temporary housing in Denver. The company had offered to put me up in corporate housing for the first month, but I wanted my own space, somewhere I could start building a new life without any reminders of the old one. Around 6 o'clock, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. "Nick, we need to talk. Serena's hired an attorney." That was fast. "It gets worse. She's claiming you publicly humiliated her and damaged her reputation. She's talking about suing for emotional distress, maybe even defamation." I laughed, which probably wasn't the response he expected. "Let her try. Everything I said was true, and I have documentation to prove it. Besides, truth is an absolute defense against defamation." "That's not the point. She could drag this out, make it expensive and messy. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I'm sure, but I want to make a counteroffer first." "What kind of counteroffer?" "I want a clean divorce, 50-50 split of assets, and I keep the Denver job. In exchange, I won't release the full file Sarah Chen compiled. Trust me, what I showed at the party was just the appetizer." Monday morning brought a call from Trent. I was in my hotel room, packing the last of my things, when his name appeared on my phone screen. Curiosity got the better of me. "Nick, we need to meet," he said without preamble. Man to man. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." "I think we do. 1 hour, Murphy's Diner. Come alone?" The line went dead. I stared at the phone, wondering what kind of play he was making. Then I called Greg. "Trent wants to meet," I told him. Murphy's, 1 hour. Want backup? Just stay close. If this goes sideways, I want a witness. Murphy's was nearly empty when I arrived. Just a few truckers nursing coffee and a waitress who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Trent was sitting in the same booth Greg and I had used, but he looked very different from the confident man who'd shown up at my party. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "You look like hell," I said, sliding into the opposite seat. "Thanks to you." His voice was hoarse, probably from arguing. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I told the truth. Revolutionary concept, I know. "You destroyed my career. My boss called this morning. I'm being transferred to the Portland office. Effective immediately." Sounds like a lateral move. Portland's nice this time of year. It's a demotion, and we both know it. They're burying me in the Pacific Northwest because they don't want the scandal affecting their other clients. I signaled the waitress for coffee, taking my time with the response. Trent was desperate, which meant he was dangerous. Desperate people made stupid choices. "What do you want, Trent?" "I want you to fix this. Call your lawyer. Tell him you made a mistake. Say the photos were doctored, that you were having some kind of breakdown." "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll make your life hell. I've got connections, resources. I can make sure you never work in finance again." I laughed, and the sound echoed through the empty diner. "You think I'm afraid of you? Trent, I just blew up my entire life in front of 50 people and slept better than I have in years. You think threatening my career is going to scare me?" "I think you're not as smart as you believe you are." That's when I saw Greg walk in, taking a seat at the counter where he could watch our table. Trent noticed him too, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Friend of yours?" "Insurance policy." I leaned back in my seat, completely relaxed. "Here's what's going to happen, Trent. You're going to take your transfer to Portland and disappear from my life. You're going to stay away from Serena. Not because I care about her, but because I don't want any reason for our paths to cross again. And you're going to accept that you got caught, like a grown-up." "And if I don't?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. Sarah Chen had been thorough, very thorough. The photo showed Trent with another woman, someone who wasn't Serena, in what was clearly a hotel room. "Recognize her? That's Jennifer Walsh from your marketing department. Married, 2 kids, husband's a lawyer." I scrolled to another photo. "And this is Amanda Pierce from accounting, also married." Trent's face went white. "Turns out you've been busy, Trent. My wife wasn't your only side project. How do you think your boss would react if he knew you'd been sleeping with half the female staff? How do you think their husbands would react?" "You bastard." "No, I'm just thorough. Portland's looking better all the time, isn't it?" He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. For a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me, but Greg's presence at the counter seemed to change his mind. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." He stormed out, leaving me alone with my coffee and a profound sense of satisfaction. 1 down, 2 to go. Chapter 5. The Final Confrontation. Tuesday afternoon, Serena made her last desperate play. I was at the house, boxing up the few personal items I wanted to take to Denver, when she came home early from work. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged and her eyes were red. But she'd tried to fix herself up before facing me. "Nick, please, we need to talk." "I thought we were past talking." "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But we can fix this." I continued packing books into a cardboard box, not bothering to look at her. "Which mistake are you referring to? The affair with Trent? The manipulation with Mindy? Or the part where you tried to play mind games instead of just talking to me like an adult?" "All of it. I was confused, I was scared about us growing apart, and I made bad choices. But I love you, Nick. I've always loved you." That made me stop packing. I turned to face her, studying her expression. She looked sincere, vulnerable, like the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. For just a moment, I felt an echo of the old feelings. Then I remembered the photos, the lies, the elaborate scheme to manipulate me into being more attentive while she was sleeping with her boss. "You love me?" I asked. "When? Between the hotel visits with Trent? During your strategy sessions with Mindy about how to make me more compliant? It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "How was it supposed to happen, Serena? Walk me through your master plan." She sat down on the couch, wrapping her arms around herself like she was cold. "Mindy said you were taking me for granted. She said men need to be reminded of what they could lose, that a little jealousy would make you more romantic, more attentive. So you decided to have an affair." No, it was just supposed to be flirting, maybe a few dinners to make you notice. But Trent was so charming, and he made me feel desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. And the hotel rooms? She looked away. That just happened. Multiple times. Over 3 months, with your best friend making the reservations and providing alibis. I know how it looks. It looks like you decided you wanted to cheat on me, so you found an excuse and a support system to make it happen. It looks like you thought I was too stupid to figure it out. I never thought you were stupid. You thought I was controllable. You thought you could manipulate me into being the husband you wanted while you got your excitement somewhere else. The only thing you didn't count on was me having my own plans. She started crying again, real tears this time. What do you want me to say, Nick? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. There's nothing to fix. We're done. But the house, our life together, all our friends watched you humiliate yourself at a party because you couldn't keep your affair quiet. The house is just a building. And our life together ended the first time you climbed into bed with Trent? I closed the box of books and carried it toward the door. Serena followed me, still pleading. Please don't leave like this. Please don't let it end this way. I stopped at the threshold and turned back one last time. Serena, you ended it the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. I'm just making it official. That evening, I had dinner with Greg at a steakhouse downtown. It felt like a celebration, though neither of us said so explicitly. Heard from my source at Serena's office, he said over his beer. Trent cleaned out his desk this morning, didn't even say goodbye to anyone. Good riddance. Mindy's not doing much better. Dave filed for divorce yesterday, and he's not being generous. Apparently he's been documenting her affairs for over a year. Affairs, plural? The personal trainer was just the latest. There were at least 2 others before him. I shook my head, amazed at the web of deception that had been surrounding me. How did I miss all of this? You trusted the people you should have been able to trust. That's not a character flaw, Nick. That's what normal people do. Normal people don't blow up their lives at neighborhood parties. Normal people don't usually have to, but when they do, they should do it with style. He raised his beer in a toast. To new beginnings. To new beginnings. Wednesday morning, I flew to Denver. The plane lifted off from Chicago just as the sun was breaking through the clouds, and I watched the city shrink beneath me until it was just a pattern of lights and shadows. Somewhere down there, Serena was probably dealing with divorce lawyers and damage control. Trent was packing for Portland. Mindy was discovering what it felt like to be on the receiving end of social ostracism. I felt no guilt about any of it. My new apartment was in downtown Denver, a modern building with mountain views and underground parking. It was smaller than the house I'd shared with Serena, but it felt bigger somehow, full of possibilities instead of compromises. The job was everything I'd hoped for and more. My new colleagues were smart, ambitious, and refreshingly honest. No office politics, no hidden agendas, just good people doing good work. Within a week, I felt more valued and respected than I had in years. 3 weeks into my new life, I got a call from my lawyer back in Chicago. Serena's ready to settle, he said. She's dropping all the defamation nonsense and accepting your terms. 50-50 split, clean divorce, no alimony. What changed her mind? Probably the fact that her lawyer explained how defamation law actually works. Plus, I may have mentioned that we still have quite a bit of evidence we haven't used yet. Such as? Company credit cards used for personal expenses, falsified timesheets, a few other irregularities Sarah Chen discovered. Nothing criminal, but enough to make her current employment situation very uncomfortable if it became public. I smiled, looking out at the Rocky Mountains through my office window. Send me the papers. I'll sign them today. 6 months later, I was having drinks with some colleagues after work when one of them mentioned seeing a news story about a Chicago advertising executive who'd been fired for ethics violations. I didn't recognize the name at first, but when she showed me the article on her phone, I saw a familiar face. Serena had been terminated from her firm for misuse of company resources and inappropriate relationships with colleagues. The article didn't go into details, but it mentioned an ongoing investigation into several employees, including a former vice president who'd been transferred to the Portland office. Do you know her? My colleague asked, noticing my expression. We used to be married, I said. Ouch. Messy divorce? Not really. She made it pretty easy in the end. That night, I walked home through downtown Denver, past the restaurants and shops, through the park where couples walked their dogs and street musicians played for tips. It was a good life, simple and honest, and entirely my own. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, I thought it might be Serena, reaching out from whatever wreckage remained of her old life. but it was from Greg. Saw the news about your ex. Thought you should know. The house sold last week. New family moved in, seems nice. Kids, dog, the whole suburban dream. I typed back, good for them. They'll be happier there than we ever were. Any regrets? He asked. I stopped walking and considered the question. Did I regret the marriage? The wasted years? The dramatic way it had ended? Just one, I finally replied. I should have done it sooner. Standing there on a Denver street corner, surrounded by the life I'd built from the ashes of my old one, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. And I had definitely gotten better. The mountain air was crisp and clean, full of promise. I put my phone away and walked home to my apartment, my new life, my future. Behind me, Chicago was 1,000 miles away and getting farther every day. The perfect timing, indeed. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.